Well, I know that when it comes to the intersection of people who care about infrastructure software and Costco, we are basically the thought lords of that space. So I wanted to throw something out there for people who might be in a position that I am. Now, you're going to go to Costco for the past few months and into the future, and you're going to say, I'm not going to wear Kirkland jeans. I haven't given up that much. But I am attracted to those Levi jeans that they have. Now, the issue with Levi jeans is that they've got about 20,000 different versions. Mm-hmm. Like they've got the SKUs based on 5, and then there's variations in there, and it's very confusing. And so I find it hard. Like once you discover that one type of pant that you like it's hard to buy it the next year. Like I wish there was some sort of QCat system that I could scan something and be like, I want the same exact thing. So you go to Costco. Wait, you want to interject something, Matt Ray?
Why don't you just buy 5 pairs of the same pants?
Agreed.
This is what I was trying to achieve. So I've been going to Costco recently, and they have, in addition to the Kirkland jeans and this weird ass Calvin Klein's Tommy Hilfiger stuff that injects into their clothing section. I don't know who that's for. I don't know what that is. That's like stuff DBAs wear or something. But so like they've got like Levi's that are actual like 5'11", like regular fit. They look very alluring. They're sort of like the right color, right? They look like the right kind of jeans. So you buy them because you're like, oh, good deal, $25, good price for Levi's. 25 to 30 is a good range for a pair of Levi's. And you bring them home, and they're basically bell bottoms.
Oh.
So you got to watch.
Do they not? No dressing room to like see that you look like a fool?
No, I mean I have actually.
You don't just drop your trousers in the middle of the Costco and.
I have seen like the adorable, the man is portly older couple in Costco trying on things, not like exposing underpants, but trying on shirts. And I think maybe when I get retired, I can be those people. But until then, I need to maintain my cool.
You hold on to your dignity, Cote.
Exactly, but it's just like just don't buy the Levi's from Costco. I've done this. I'm ashamed to admit, but I'm doing it as a service to our listenership. I've done this twice now, so you know what they say: fool me 3 times.
You know
fool me again.
You know what kind of Costco fool I am? I'm the guy who buys the 1 loaf of bread. I'm the guy who loads up with the case of beer on a Sunday morning, and I get up to the register, and they're like, not enough bread, too much beer.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for those who are not beset by our pure living here in Texas, before noon on Sunday, you cannot buy alcohol. At 10 a.m., you can go to a restaurant and buy alcohol and beer, but not at a store. I don't know if there's some lobby and they were like, in those 2 hours of time, gentlemen, we're going to make a lot of money on the Sunday brunch. And what's going on? But it's a little ridiculous. Let alone if I want to drink at 8 a.m. on a Sunday, what happened to freedom?
It's in Louisiana where you can have it 24/7.
And look how that's turned out. They eat bugs.
As my significant other works in public health, and pretty much every state in the nation points at Louisiana as the source of all their transmissible diseases. Maybe it's correlated. I don't know.
But yeah, I think I've mentioned this before, but I used to be a big fan of chicken livers until one day Matt Ray looked over and said,
"Oh my God,
you realize that's like eating the pool filter or something like that." And I still try to enjoy liver every now and then, but I can't enjoy it as much. I think that's kind of how a lot of people think of Louisiana, right? Like it's like the pool filter at the end of the Mississippi. And I mean, I think it's a delightful place. I wish I went to Louisiana.
I love New Orleans. I love to visit. The rest of Louisiana is entertaining. But things happen there that it's a different world.
So speaking of people who like to cast dispersions on the rest of their fellow citizen nation, you're at ChefCon in San Francisco there, right, Matt Ray? You're in the Bay, whatever. You're in the Silicon Valley.
South Bay.
Are you in the what are you in the Santa Clara Convention Center?
Can you pick it out from the background behind me? You're looking over your shoulders like, oh yeah, I've been there too many times. Velocity, OpenStack Summit. I think I was here once 3 times in 4 weeks. It's I was even here for the I was there for for 451 conferences, EclipseCon. It's a great venue.
It's a good place.
It provides good utility as a place to hold a conference.
Just down the street, In-N-Out Burger. Just throwing that out there. You can go down there. So I noticed I read a little bit up on this, but I figured, why read up on it when I'll have Matt Ray? You guys announced some sort of continuous delivery hoo-ha over there.
Yes.
What's the story, Matt Ray?
So the name of the product is not hoo-ha. It's actually delivery, chef delivery. So it is a continuous integration, continuous deployment product that takes similar to other CI products that are out there.
It's like a Jenkins thing? Like what are we talking about?
It's if you're familiar with like OpenStack, how they do their continuous integration, where you have Garrett, which does code reviews, and you have to have gates and phases of, hey, I submit a patch, it gets picked up, tested, and then you have to have people code review it, and then those code reviews get merged and tested in real infrastructure. So it's kind of the culmination of all the projects we've been building. So we have like Test Kitchen, which is our testing suite. So it does unit, functional, and integration testing, and we have Chef Provisioning, which allows you to deploy infrastructure on VMware and OpenStack and AWS and Azure and everything else. Because we have all the different pieces, you can build heterogeneous continuous integration delivery pipelines in one product instead of having to handcraft your own artisanal one. It's opinionated. But it's our opinion, and it works very well for Chef and Chef users. So I've earned my marketing dollars for the day.
So what's the strategy? Is this like Chef moving up the stack a little bit, getting
it is
into the developer world?
Yeah.
Like, is that crossing over into less ops, more dev?
Somewhat. So we've always been big proponents of the idea of infrastructure as code. And when you do infrastructure as code, of course you're going to have testing and test-driven infrastructure. We pushed on that, and then people started building these CI pipelines to put their applications and their infrastructure through Jenkins, through Cruise Control, through TeamCity, through all these CI sorts of products. And each one was different from the next, and we built a lot of them for a lot of different customers. And so as we gather these requirements and hired up the fine Mr. Jez Humble, who wrote the book Continuous Delivery, we have our take on it, and people seem to like it.
In that eggs video, that was a very thin version of his book that he was reading. I would like a copy of that version if I could get the take on it.
And I'm pretty sure the real book doesn't have the half profile picture of his face. But we took a little dramatic license on his books.
I mean, come on, you need to use some of that sweet VC money and print up a run of books like.
Yes, sweet VC money.
Put a word into the check writers over there, Matt Ray. Do a little,
I'll see what I can do. I can do.
Well, yeah. I remember back when I was when I was an analyst. Good times, and talking with chef folks a little bit about this, how you guys were working on it. So that's exciting. It's like I think I would say that a huge percent of the conversations I get involved in basically amount to I want continuous delivery, right? Like
full stop.
Yeah, it's the to use the Cuisinart metaphor, right? It's like I want a meal. I don't give a shit how you do it, right? I mean, I'm going to have opinions about how you assemble it together, but eventually, I just want a meal, right?
Yeah,
and so it's interesting with several of the accounts that we have nowadays. They're like, I get how Pivotal Cloud Foundry helps me, and I know that I need it, and all that, and all this other stuff. But what I'm working on is continuous delivery.
Yep.
And so that's nice. Like there's several other people like for VMware had a kind of an oddly quiet announcement last whatever that was fall. It's over on this hand I'm pointing to.
In Barcelona. VMware's CodeStream.
That would be over here, I think.
Oh yeah, CodeStream. There it is.
Yeah, but yeah, it was. I wouldn't say everyone's doing it, but I think it's encouraging industry wide to see lots of people having this realization that becomes actual shipping product. That like, Oh, right. The whole point is to ship software. Got it.
Yeah, it's we're not just here to polish knobs. We're here to build doors and build houses and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you guys have your you got your anthill urban code hoopla. I mean, everyone's I love this. It's like delivering code. It's fun stuff.
So Matt Ray, who's out there attending Chef Con this year? What's the breakdown between ops and developers? Like what would you say?
So we have I think there are about 1,600 people, and obviously there's a lot of chef people here, but there's also a lot of large enterprises have showed up in force. Target, Disney, they actually have booths. They showed up with 50 people and want to hire as many people as they can. There's a lot of financial service folks. The story of delivery and compliance at velocity. Being able to have full audit trail and visibility of everything you do. They dig that. And then, of course, there's still, the big web folks like, Yahoo and Facebook and a lot of our big customers. So it's a mix. I mean, it's definitely skewing towards the more enterprisey folks as we get bigger and get into more of those sorts of accounts. They like to show up and, it's not like, hey, I got 2 guys from my hot startup. It's like, oh, we got 20 people from, Bank of our Standard Bank from South Africa. It's real big enterprises. So it's not as cool as the first one. I mean, the cool kids are still coming, but that's why we have the developer conference. We have 2 community summits, one in Seattle, one in London, and those are more unstructured. They don't have a speaker track and big corporate parties and all the fun stuff. So different conferences for different audiences.
And did you have like the pork, like big pieces of pork under hot lamps?
We did. So I did get to attend the sales and partner dinner last night, and it was delightful. There was a.
Ooh, was there some sort of sauces sprinkled over, like lonely pieces of meat on big plates?
I did not partake in the meat plates, but there was a lot of meat.
Polenta. Perhaps you opted for the quinoa or the polenta.
The quinoa. There we go.
Well, I think I might have gone for the field green salad.
Oh, field green salad. Wow. How appropriate for the type of dinner you were at.
Look at this, Matt Ray. I'm worried about Matt Ray. He's out there. He's growing up. He's talking to enterprise customers. But you hear it in his voice. He's like, but I'm still with the developer. He's like, I didn't eat. I went to the sales meeting, but I didn't eat the pork. I had the salad. Okay? I had the salad. I'm not there yet. Next year, I think you're going to have the pork, Matt Ray. It's going to happen.
That's going to be.
2 things are going to happen. Matt Ray's going to be either VP of Biz Dev at Chef, or he will have quit. You have to choose that, and just have the pork. Keep the pork.
You're saying I can't stay being a vegetarian?
You can't, dude. You just go into it.
Sales eats meat.
You're out there with the finance customers. You're out there with the retail guys. Just go.
Yeah.
Go to the dark side, Matt Ray.
Keep going.
It's like Beecham always said, you don't eat the plan, you eat the pork.
That's right. You don't eat your classic Bob Beecham quote right there.
Yeah. No, so we had a lot of good technical partner announcements. So that's my.
I'm gonna translate the entire Matt Ray segment into like chefs really being successful, and I'm sad about that. That's the news, guys. That's the
no.
I like it when it was just my friends and people really didn't understand us. Now everyone's coming, and I need to find a new job.
Well,
Matt Ray, all recruiters. Matt Ray is available. He would like a job in community startup, preferably in a very obscure area that no one truly understands, but that will be big in 5 years. And he can just talk about how great it is, and no one gets it. Please, all recruiters, just direct.
Oh man,
direct on Twitter. He'll be available for the next 6 months.
You've got me wildly looking through our topic list, because that would be an excellent segue to be like, speaking of obscure topics that no one.
Speaking of tilting at windmills.
How about those Chromebooks?
Whoa,
there we go.
That is your segue. So
yeah.
I mean, I did post a link to the Reg had an article about Google introducing new crazy cheap Chromebooks, and I just kind of put it in there because it's like, you look at those, you're like, why don't I just get a real laptop? But I know Kote's a big fan.
Kote loves it. Kote, are you still in love with your Chromebook?
I was gonna dig around here.
That's how much you love
down
it.
Here. Where? No, that's a keyboard. I've got it. I've got it around here somewhere. Let me recap the Chromebook rant, if you will. All right. I have used a few Chromebooks over the years. So first of all, a Chromebook is this delightful little computer, one from Google, but also you can OEM the software and put out your own version. I think all the great PC vendors have a Chromebook, and like Matt Ray said, it's really cheap. I think it's like $200, and it's basically it's like a web browser with some local storage. It's kind of weird. And I like the idea of the Chromebook. And last time I tried to use it, let me tell you how it failed. There's a little thing called desktop applications. And, you end up using quite a lot of those if you're not totally married to Google apps. And it just kind of made it not really work. So my theory is that if you pretty much were happy with using Google apps, the Chromebook would be great, right? And it is, it actually it has the one I got her super fancy one as a review unit, right? It has a nice screen on it. Everything's nice about it. It's just now I want to use something other than what's in a web browser.
But at what point is it just like an Android laptop? I mean,
it's not literally that, but it's sort of it's as it says, it's a Chrome laptop. So you can have Chrome apps, right? So you can write an application that's in Chrome and it has that, but it's just it is the same thing of if you were to imagine, let's pretend that there were iPhones and there were only 10,000 apps for them, right? It would be sort of the same thing, right? iPhones are only nice because there's so many apps for them and it does so much stuff for you. And the problem is in Chromebook land, there's not. Last I checked, there's just not enough apps.
So why not get an Android tablet with a Bluetooth keyboard?
I know. Isn't
that the plan? Hasn't Google, organizationally kind of put the Chrome OS people and the Android people together, and that will just be merged into
I hope
one
so.
entity?
That is confusing madness over there, right? On the other hand, it's Apple doesn't really do that. So Apple is on that same path of, depending on how you choose to count it, 3 different platforms, right? Both of them have traditional desktop operating system, OS 10, and Chrome. I mean, whatever, right?
I thought you were going to say the 3 platforms were the watch, the phone, and
no,
and the TV.
yeah. No. Basically, there's a laptop form factor, a phone form factor, and a web browser. Each of them have those 3 things, right? Now Google hacks it up because their laptop form factor is basically a web browser, but I don't know. It is now. I think what the situation that Chromebooks are good for. I think there's 2 things that they would be good for, both of which are sort of I don't really care about, I guess. One of them is education, where Chromebooks are actually really popular.
Yeah,
we don't
need no education.
Yeah. Leave those kids alone. Give them iPads. But because they're really cheap, and you know what kids do. I hear this total straw man is they'll trash your laptop. So I think basically and speaking of trashing your laptop, there's 2 classes of computer users that get no respect because they're always trashing your laptop. K-12 and call center people. And then so that's the second scenario that's good is if you know what VDI is and you care about that. I think eventually Chromebooks will be an interesting workstation for that. And on the other hand, it's you could also just go to Dell and buy their Wise stuff or whoever else and buy super cheap just terminals.
Or you could do remote desktop on an iPad. I mean,
exactly.
It seems they won't get rid of that netbook market. It's just give it up, guys.
Yeah. My extensive field research into this is the use case I've seen multiple times with Chromebook is the following. The parent who pretty much uses nothing but Apple and high-end, computing devices is forced to buy their children something for school. And they're like, no way am I spending $800 on Apple products for you guys. I'm going to give you Chromebooks, which is sort of like, it's analogous to the enterprise sale. It's like, wait a minute, I don't have to use it. I'm just worried about budget. You get this. And that user base of the young children have no choice. They're sent off to school with their Chromebooks. One day, and they can either discover Mac on their own as they get older, or maybe they can.
As long as they can do the Flash games, and they're probably.
That's it. That's true, because it's at school. They're just like, I just want to play this one game. That's all I want to do. It's like, all right, take this Chromebook, be in the corner, be happy.
I think so. The reason I'm always, despite not really ever wanting to use it, the reason why I'm interested in the Chromebook is because it's this interesting long-term strategy thing that's going on. And I think there's two things. There's one thing that you just said, Brandon. It's basically like there's this price point of compute, bam, done, right? Like whether passing no judgment, like it totally satisfies that. Like you want something for like a couple $100, we got you covered. And it'll integrate together with all this stuff and blah, 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 right? Like it's sort of a solution. And I mean that in a good way for that. And the second thing that I'm interested in is we're always like really fast to judge something like before it reaches like 5th grade in the tech world. and like, I think Chromebooks are maybe at a 4th grade level at the moment, right? Like they're kind of taking their time and they're evolving it, but it'll be curious to see if Google keeps funding this with their artificial funny money. By artificial, it's real money, but it's sort of like they probably don't have to operate under the same thing. But it'll be interesting to see what happens like after 10 years, like if something cool happens there. Because really, like, yeah, those iPads are expensive.
Yeah.
Right. And like I have an old I think it's a 1st generation iPad that we give to that my son Cormac uses. And I had a hilarious moment that is kind of in a roundabout way telling of why I think the Chromebook is interesting the other day. So we were setting it up, and my wife Kim got this iPad. And she was saying like, "Oh, it's the old version of the OS on it because it's you can't upgrade."
Yeah, I got one of those.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, it kind of sucks. Like I was all excited that when we got an Apple TV, when they added the new feature where you could stream video, and then we could use this iPad as like the remote for the Apple TV, but we can't do that. And then there was this pause, and Kim was I don't think she said this exactly, but in a lot more words, she said, those guys are fucking assholes. Right? Like my wife doesn't talk like that, but that was the upshot of it. And it was like, it was this realization of, it's not even planned obsolescence. It's sort of like planned desertion that was like very like unsettling to her. And whereas I feel like in Chromebook land, hopes are a little better, right? Like they would almost be this thing of like, I would like to buy a really cheap technology that will last 3, 4, 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. And I think you could do something like that with Chromebooks.
Well, and obviously, like the vendors aren't building them out of the goodness of their heart; they must still be selling them.
Yeah. No, and like so, for example, the first Chromebook I got was at when they announced them at Google I/O 2010 or 2011.
Wow.
And yeah, it was like plastic. It was like proportionally cheap feeling to the cheapness of it, which is fine. It's like, hey, like, do you remember netbooks? It was like a netbook.
I know. That's what I mean. Yeah. Like they're back. They
yeah. And the problem with netbooks was like, it's just like they sucked. Whereas the Chromebooks are a little bit better. Like they narrowly defined the use case for what they were doing. So. Like I remember trying to run TweetDeck on a netbook, and it's just like
you had that tiny Sony, like
whatever you guys gave out at Xenos, yeah. And
no. Remember you had that little tiny one when we were.
Oh yeah. That was awesome. That was like a real computer.
Yeah, they need more of those.
but then the second one that I got, which I was trying to dig around from, was I got that high end Pixel one. And that one, I mean, it's like really expensive. It's like a really nice machine.
But then why would you buy a $1,200 laptop that has nothing local?
Yeah, I know. It's because you make those crazy West Coast salaries.
This comes down to Chromebooks, the computer you're forced to use until you can buy your own computer. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only market left.
That's the only market left. And, I think we can summarize Android, great from Google. Just use that. Chromebooks will be a dead project.
Yes. Chromebooks, good for schools and prisons.
Schools and prisons, exactly.
I mean, call centers.
And they will never
possibly the same thing.
Like the Google self-driving car, they should be retired into that back lot of Google.
You're not a fan of the self-driving car?
No, I like it. I just think the Google one always looks so stupid. It looks like Google Glass. I'm like, yeah, Tesla's probably gonna have a great self-driving car.
The Mercedes
Google,
one, yeah.
Or Mercedes, like Google, you're like, that looks ridiculous. I will never wear those glasses in my Google car. I won't use either of those.
My Google car.
Can you imagine it?
Can you imagine?
It's like a big ball.
Driving down the road, like I got my hands
Google
up.
Glass on.
None of this. There's no hands up.
Google Glass. It's like it'd be great.
I'm just like
yeah. It comes with a pair of those like footy shoes that you have to wear while you're driving. That would be great.
I mean, if you've ever seen or you've sat in a Tesla for some reason, it's just like, holy shit, this is the future. And then you see the pictures of the Google car, you're like, I'm sure the future's not the future is not that.
You're like, I can't wait to live in Playmobil.
No, I don't want the future to be Google cars. I don't want that. I want the Tesla.
For the Mr. Show fans out there, I'm going to leave it at this. All these goats are retarded. Right? That's all you need to know. I'll put a link in the show notes for that. And anyway.
So what else could we talk about?
Well, to insert my little ad for Pivotal here, I'll be brief. I've been working with them for a long time to get like a little code so we can track effectiveness. Now I'm going to be honest with our dear listeners. I don't have a special offer that you can't get without doing this code. But if you go to cote.io/pivotal, you can sign up for like 2 free months of Pivotal Web Services, and it'll track that you came from us, and that'll be great. Or if you want to quickly write down a URL, you can type in try.run.pivotal.io/SDT. That works too.
That might be longer.
Yeah, but just go to cote.io/pivotal, and there's a little link there you can click on. That's all I got for you. Just sign up, use the Pivotal Web Services. We'll see if anyone around here is worth a shit to Pivotal.
Yeah, if you don't do that, they'll make Cote stay on the clock and he can't record the podcast.
That's right.
Oh, wait. See how I've removed clocks from my office? That's a pro tip for people. Anyways.
Cote can do, write data sheets or a podcast. If you guys register on that code, Cote can do podcasts. Otherwise, he'll be writing data sheets.
Go to pivotal.com.
Audience,
5 stars.
It's in your hands. It's your decision what Cote does next week. Good luck with that.
and then also in our interstitial thing before we get to the third act, before we do recommendations, I have a few follow-up items.
Oh, follow-ups.
So one, I think last week I erroneously said that our friend Stacey Higginbotham, formerly of GigaOM, was writing for Forbes. Not true. She's writing for Fortune, the other F magazine. Now, I think this is worth mentioning because any monkey with a set of lipstick on their pig lips can write for Forbes, from what I can tell. There's some great people who write for them. I'm not saying everyone who writes for them is crazy. There's good people. One of them, which we'll mention in a while, because he's grown a beard and he looks damn handsome. But like in general, the Fortune people is like a different sort of like selective class. So good for her. She's writing for the Fortune. And then also we talked about Under Armour, which is maybe the same listener should tell me why armor is spelled like in some weird British way, or maybe I don't know how to spell American.
Maybe they're British.
Wow.
Mind blown.
You're rocking my world. It's a good thing I've got this headset on to keep my head together. Anyways, he was tweeting at us, and we were completely bubbling, or I should say, someone was babbling their way through knowing if they're successful or not, and he sent over some numbers. And if you look at it, that Under Armour company, those guys aren't fucking around. They're like making a lot of money, and he said they also have like 130 million users of their IoT. Ray's video.
I thought we were speaking highly of them, Cote. In our,
I went back and listened to the tape, and we were. I think he just wanted to throw out some numbers.
Okay.
Which I think was helpful. I think
great if Under Armour sent us some gear, then we'd really be excited about them.
Yeah.
Wait, is that
how about
we
some
work
free
now?
T-shirts? How about some T-shirts? How about some one of those cool Under Armour watches?
We said a lot of nice things about Tesla.
The bottom feeders have spoken.
That's going to be the ask for later. That'll be, that's right, guys. That's my recommendation. Buy Tesla.
but that was what it was. I think it is perhaps to cue it up for next week. So earlier this morning, speaking of writing data sheets, I wrote a long post on what software defined business is. Like, is that a good thing, a strategy for people to bet on? And I wrote, I'll put it in the show notes, but I wrote a post on why, out of the 4 different ways that the tech companies could make money, that's probably something they'll be looking at in the future. But I think Under Armour's hopefully continued future success in this area will be a good proof point there of why, like, a little bit of software makes life suck less. So
although I will say, and probably preventing me from to get the T-shirt, is I use my Under Armour heart rate monitor, and I tried to use my ride this week, and it said I only rode for 30 seconds and burned 2 calories. So I felt like it was a fail. It was a fail on their part because I did ride a lot longer.
At least 2 minutes, right?
So Under Armour, if you get a chance, just fix that. Thanks, guys.
2 calories. I hope those were big calories, not the little calories.
That's what I was hoping as well.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, so also just yesterday there was an announcement that Nebula shut down.
Yeah.
Back to the OpenStack corner of our podcast, Brandon.
I mean, what is there to say?
Brandon, bring the
It just rates the post, rates itself. Nebula, based on OpenStack, shut down. I mean,
yeah. You know.
What else do you want me to say? It's like, because OpenStack's just a science project. It's like, I don't, and now someone's going to be like, but at this conference, there was this big retailer and they're using it. It's like, okay, nothing's happening there.
I was looking through the news trying to find a summary of sort of like momentum and customer stuff that Nebula had. I'm sure it's in the most recent 451 report, which I no longer have access to, but it would be fun to know like all of the momentum and customer stuff, because whenever someone suddenly bottoms out, it's always fun to replay the tape and see like what the last year or so of like everything is going fine messaging is, because it's an interesting comparison. Now, what I always liked about Nebula was they had really awesome looking racks. You remember those with the spiderweb stuff on them? Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was at Dell, we would of course talk with these guys from time to time, like everyone else. And they were pretty smooth. I like their approach, like the idea of like, put this box in here, and they would never say this, but as Brandon said, your science experiment will run better. They were like, no hand-drawn charts in this one, man. We're printing out some fancy Excel stuff for our triptych of the project.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know what happened. They were one of the first OpenStack startups.
Yeah.
And they raised a lot of money and were kind of quiet about what they were doing, and now they're gone.
Yeah. No, I'd be really curious to hear about customer counts and things like that. It'd be interesting to know the story. In related news, I mean, there's 2 things I'll point to. One, I think Mirantis had an interesting post. That's sort of I think what do you call that? I sort of repeated myself 5 times there in that one sentence. But anyways, like where they're talking about joining the Cloud Foundry Foundation. That's great. We appreciate it. And they had an interesting analysis of the OpenStack market. I think it was Boris over there who wrote it. And I've already seen like all sorts of chatter. As always, when you're on the vendor side, everyone but you is awful and stupid and they suck. So like, you get that feedback from numerous people who work at vendors, and that's enjoyable. But it was a fun analysis, very brief. You should go check it out. It was like all Mirantis stuff. It was basically like, everyone else is kind of crazy. We're doing well, but
well, the nice.
It was one of the better write-ups of, so what is this Kubernetes Docker mesosphere? What's going on here? And it was I think it was a pretty clear write-up of what's going on here, in addition to Mirantis Boris analysis.
Yeah, I mean, for good or bad, Mirantis's posts are a little less filtered than a lot of marketing materials.
Exactly.
They call it as they see it. You might not agree with them, and it frequently angers other vendors, but that's entertainment, right?
Yeah. That's exactly what I mean. Is like it's a good look behind the picture. I mean, it's not as good as like and now watch this drive, or I'm gonna go cut some underbrush or anything like that. It's a good human side of it. And then there was a reminder from our old buddy Rob Hirschfeld, who has his own startup around Crowbar. He had a nice brief post where he was like, well, if there's one lesson learned, it's that if you want to support a community, they're going to need money. So I think that's always good.
Breaking news. Breaking news.
Yeah. This just
in
in.
order to have something real, you must have money and a sustainable business model.
That's right. And also another news. It looks like Red Hat's doing well. Speaking of making money, I think they came out with their quarterlies. We'll put a link. There's actually a back to my 451 friends. One of my old analyst colleagues who was on my team, Jay Lyman, had a nice write up that you can read for free. Of them, and they've been doing well. Like I was observing them when I was at 451, and like just like I always stop myself from spending too much time buying microphones. Like I always think like, man, I should 9 months ago I should have bought their stock because like I totally called it. Of course, I never go back and look at like things that I thought was great that didn't.
Yeah, 9 months ago on the podcast, we were probably like, what's up with those guys?
Yeah. But no, I think I think as much as speaking of being on the vendor side, as it pains me to say this because I'm at Pivotal, they said they signed up their first $10 million deal around OpenShift, their platform as a service.
Yeah,
that's great for them. And they said a lot of deals they have now involve OpenStack and OpenShift, and so they're moving as the start shirt NBA kids like to say, they're moving their mix over to the new stuff, which is good for them.
Yeah.
So, you guys got any other news you want to go over before we get into recommendations?
No, I mean, I could talk about ChefConf some more, but I'm sure people are bored of that.
Brandon, did you see that this Austin company twofer got purchased by Salesforce? What do you got for me there?
I do think two factors. Actually, a good back to our the sister podcast with a lot more distribution. The Andreessen Horowitz A16. They had a good interview with Andreessen talking about security. And he kind of was like, hey, I was one of the guys who created this, and I didn't think about security at all, and we should have done that, but we didn't. But he goes on this rant about like consumers just need to learn two-factor authentication. That's just how it's going to be. And so I think to myself, like I was like, wow. It's like, well, I mean, he's the kind of guy that sometimes people listen to. So
yeah.
So I do think in the 2FA world, it is potentially, you rarely see consumer behavior change, right? Most of the time people are like, they're not going to learn anything new, but the world may be thrust upon to learn two-factor authentication.
2015, the year of 2FA.
It may be the year, right? I don't know.
Sorry, Linux desktop. Maybe next year.
Yeah, Linux. Absolutely, definitely not. Desktop virtualization. Much
back of the line.
Back of the line.
2FA maybe this year. This could be your year, guys. I don't know.
Yeah. I think so Slack got. I don't know what the word is nowadays.
Yeah, they got hacked.
Infinite, whatever.
They came out. They were like, hold on. We fixed it, guys. Here's the two-factor authentication.
Yeah. And
like,
so
really?
I
Who could have saw that coming, guys?
Yeah. It is 2FA is annoying, but it makes me feel better.
Yeah, maybe next time, I'm sure they're like, hey, do they have rights and permissions yet? Do they have users that can? It's the same basic stuff over and over. It's like the same shit these guys ignore until it breaks. It's like, okay, good to hear it, guys.
But the great thing about all these hacks, from the consumer standpoint, is we never have to pay for Experian or any of those credit check services again, right? I mean, I'm going to like
service funded by everyone else. I love that. That's awesome.
Because their customer base is probably like 80% like Home Depot and Target and Primera.
Whole new source now. This is like a commercial. Thinking about buying a home? Do you need to check your credit score? Don't pay for anything. Go look at one of your many vendors that are offering you free credit checks because they've given away your information.
Yeah, I did notice that on my speaking of other things I spend too much time thinking about, or I used to, on my Citi American Advantage card, you now can get on-demand credit checks, because like, of course, inevitably they called me up, or thankfully the CFO of the house takes care of all of this. They called up the CFO and told her that, there was some breach, so they're gonna have to issue new cards. And you're like, oh great, now I've got to set up on my auto payments, and it was hilarious. I think I was talking about Kim's reaction to the tech world earlier, her being the CFO. She had another good reaction where she was like, and they were talking to me, trying to explain what was happening, and I almost said to them, no, this happens about once or twice a year. Can I just get new cards? It's just like, you don't really even need to call me. Just send me a text and send me new cards.
Yeah, I mean, my wife the other day, she was going to the doctor, and she's like, oh, did we get new cards? Because I saw that there were 5 letters addressed to everyone in the family from the insurance company. I was like, nope, free credit coverage for everybody.
Bam.
It's like you don't get new cards; you just get credit checks.
Yeah. So there you go. All right. Well, let's go into recommendations. We'll close out the show. Brandon, you want to go first?
I do. As this audience, I'm sure knows, the really the definitive book on DevOps is the Phoenix Project. It's written by all the friends of the podcast, all of Matt Ray's good buddies. And while it's been around for a long time, the audiobook version is coming out on Tuesday. So that's April 7th. So I, of course, don't actually read any of the books I talk about. So I'm excited because I'm like, oh, great. This is a book that I always wanted to be on Audible or, your favorite audiobook format. And it's finally happening. And I'm also going to say, I think it's like the best example. Like people talk about content marketing all the time. And I'm like, this is probably one of the most successful content marketing things I've ever seen. So, check out the Phoenix Project if you haven't read it. And if you've already read it, then just, buy the Audible version because you have that.
I've got 2 items of some follow-up for you, Brandon. One, correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt Ray, because you've actually read this guy's, there's a pun coming up, this guy's work. But I feel like Gene Kim is the Guy Kawasaki of the infrastructure area.
I've read them both. Yeah.
Yeah, like he is and I mean this in he's a master marketing hustler. Like to Brandon's thing, like he's like, boom, here's the stuff, here's how you move it, like ideas. He's a good communicator.
Yeah, he knows the hustle.
Yeah, which is good stuff. Second, so I've been meaning to ask you, Brandon, because you're one of these people who, as you say, don't read books, right? That's a good catchy way of putting it. You listen to books. And so I started doing this. I actually I got that Audible deal. I've never actually read the Lean Startup. I've just read the internet instead. And like I started listening to the Lean Startup, and I thought, like, this is almost perfect because I only need to like listen to this about with 1/10 of my attention. And you can even like amp it up to play at 1.2 or 1.5 speed. And it's a little jarring at first, but you sort of like, it's almost like, I feel like at this point in my life, I don't actually need to read the Bible, but one day I should probably be more familiar with what's in it.
Could you just give me the TLDR? It's like, just try
like everyone I've read maybe like the first 1/10 of the Bible, and you hit like the Leviticus and you're like, I'm out.
I'm out. Rock Badgers, out.
Yeah. So, but I feel like the Lean Startup is one of these books where like, I could see myself, whether it was Lean Startup or the Bible, like just having it on is kind of like background noise. So I ask you, Brandon, is this like the proper approach for listening to books? Like how much attention do you have to pay to these books when you're listening to them?
Yeah, well, I am just what you said. I think the double speed or the ability to make the audio go faster, and people at first you explain that to people and they don't think it'll work, and it's like, one, they figured out how the voices don't sound like chipmunks, and two, it's like your brain processes it just fine. Like you'll get so used to it that when you go back to regular speed, it feels really slow. So I do it all the time, and I think we talk a lot about just relative these different books, and if you just kind of like. I think what I don't like about books is like when people sort of like take them as religion and this is the only way and this is like good to great and all
like the Bible.
Yeah, all the other nonsense. But I think when you think about entertainment and learning stuff, most of these books have interesting stories and a few interesting ideas. And as long as you are just looking for that, and I think Audible is a fantastic way to consume. Yeah. And honestly, I just when I run down. I have like you guys have my set of podcasts, and then when I kind of get to those at the end, or I want something a little bit longer, I have some more time, then I go right to the Audible.
Exactly, that's the other realization that I had. I think this listening to books is going to work out, Brandon. And what's the dude's name who writes Lean Startup? Is it Eric Ries, or is that the 4 steps to that? I can't read this.
Is it Ries or Rise? It's
he reads it at that book reading cadence, and which is kind of funny. And so when you read him talking fast, it makes it sound even funnier. Like the cadence that he reads at is kind of weird. It's like, and then we decided that. IMing, why would they not do it?
Right.
And he's like going over all these anecdotes, and it adds a whole new dimension of humor to it that I find delightful. And really, like a virtual goods company, what? Like it's odd how things happen. So Matt, what's your recommendation this week?
My recommendation. So I have stepped it up to. I'm a 1.1 times listener. I can't 1.2 too fast, but. I started listening to a podcast that's actually been around for a long time. It's called Hardcore History. don't download the whole feed. Oh my God. It tried to pull down like 2 gigs of audio because they are
you got to export on low. We don't need this,
no.
high quality
I mean,
stuff.
no, they're like 2-3 hour podcasts at a time.
Oh.
And he'll have like, 15 hours about the Mongols. And and it digs into, you're kind of like vaguely aware of these things, but if you wanted to hear like, I really enjoyed history when I was in college, like sitting in those classes and like, you get the stories and you get it and then you're like, I didn't want to do the homework or any of that stuff. And, the books are too long. So, having 15 hours on the Mongol hordes, it's kind of cool, like 20 hours on World War I and a lot of the like behind the scenes and, I'm really enjoying it. The feed only has the last 20 episodes. It actually goes back to like 2009 or so, and you can buy those. But it's really good stuff. The guy was a professional radio guy for a long time, and then he went online and started doing the podcast. And you can buy the old episodes, of course. But it's right now I'm listening to the Mongols. I'm learning all sorts of stuff I had no idea about. They killed like 90 million people, like crazy town.
Yeah.
It's good. No, I recommend that too. I think it's a history class without all the boring parts and no tests. Why wasn't it like this in high school?
I know. I was like, I love that class. I just go audit those classes in college.
A lot better. A lot of history. Who knew? Lots of good stories in history. Who knew that? Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah. The aforementioned CFO, one of her favorite recent books is sort of like a history of the Khans and the Mongol hordes. And like, I always appreciate not only like, I always appreciate someone else just summarizing stuff for me. She was like my Get abstract. And yeah, the Mongols, I like their strategy of like, here's what we're going to do. How about we kill all your leaders and you can live? And it's just like,
well, but even that,
I like the way you're thinking.
It wasn't like they didn't kill all the leaders. They were like, hey, we're going to fight you guys. And, we beat you guys. You did a pretty good job. Swear loyalty to me and I'll make you a general in my army or I'll kill you.
Yeah.
All right, let's fight,
Yeah, and they're kind of like, you can practice whatever religion we want. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, just satisfy my needs and then we're done.
Yeah.
And then we'll move our yurt.
But super bloodthirsty at the same time.
Yeah. All right. Well, my recommendation this week, let me hold it up.
It's CostCo jeans.
Is the TP-Link AC 1900. Now, you'll notice that I have had no audio issues in this recording today. That's because I upgraded to the TP-Link AC 1900, right? Like, now, like a good little boy, I went to the wire cutter and I looked up the recommended Wi-Fi router. I wanted a dual band router because we put these baby monitors in recently and they're on the 2.4 gigahertz or whatnot, right?
Oh.
So I got my spaghetti mixing with my pork and beans or something, right? Like, this is not working. So I actually went out and purchased some sort of like what is it called? SSID cider that we'll look at like your overlap, and I set the channel and tried that didn't work. And then there was this 5 gigahertz range where there was just this one little lonely hill. It looked wide open. So I switched over to this new router and I'm running on the 5 gigahertz. I barely know what I'm talking about, but it's great. And like, it's a new router. And if you look at the wire cutter recommendation, they recommend getting the one that's $30 cheaper than this because they're like, you don't really need that. I say, screw that. Go all in. Pay $30 more and get the fancy one, right? Yep. Like, you owe it to yourself.
You need 3 antennas, not 2.
You need 3 antennas. It's got to be white. It needs a USB 3.0 port on it that I will never use, right? Like, I need maximum functionality here for only $30. So far, it's been a good recommendation.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Well, as always, thanks for listening. If you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com, you can go over and see all that we have to offer. Don't forget, go to cote.io/pivotal. Like, get some 2 free months of Pivotal web services and other fun Pivotal stuff. And also, if you want to see the show notes for this episode, you can go to cote.io/SDT. What episode are we at?
28.
So that's all you ever have to do. Go to cote.io/SDT, episode number 28, SDT 28. Boom, show notes.
Done.
With that, we'll see everyone next time.
Later.